7 down, 5 to go in the Iowa football season. Certainly a disappointing weekend at Kinnick Stadium, but hopefully the Hawkeyes will be able to regroup through the bye week, and then it's 2 on the road at Wisconsin and at Northwestern. Welcome to Black and Gold Breakdown. Rob Brooks with Matt Vandenberg, former star wideout for the Hawkeyes. And you know, Matt, that was tough to swallow. That was not a lot of fun for the fans, the players, the coaches, everybody involved. And we'll take a look at the return by Ivory Kelly-Martin on the kickoff, down 24-7, and that's when, okay, maybe there's a glimmer of hope because there was still over 12 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Could Iowa somehow, some way pull this off? But Purdue was the better team on Saturday.
Well, and to your point, knowing that you're down, 17 with 12 minutes left, our guys are still fighting. Our guys are still trying to go and make plays happen. Charlie Jones with a big punt return, at least trying their best to give us an opportunity to come back. Purdue had the right game plan. They had the right guys, and that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah, and I think you look at it, and certainly nobody's making excuses, but Iowa coming off an emotional high victory against Penn State, number 2 in the country. Purdue with a bye week, 2 weeks to kind of prepare, get themselves healthy, maybe put in some new wrinkles. And Purdue's just kind of had Iowa's number and kind of felt that right from the beginning. But in the big picture, advantage Purdue from those 2 standpoints.
Well, now, like you talked about, now we're going into our bye week. So we played more than half the season before getting our chance to rest. And they only played half of theirs. So that definitely plays into it. You talk about nagging injuries, things that you might not know about, that the average fan doesn't know about that somebody's dealing with, a little bum, sore wrist or whatever it is. So now an opportunity to regroup, recalibrate, and then come back for the back half of the season.
So a bye week at this stage of the season, what's it look like?
Giving the starters a little bit of a rest, trying to heal their bodies, get back to. Obviously, we've got a lot left to play for. The Big Ten West is out there, Big Ten Championship's still out there, and so trying to take care of those guys and see what the young guys can do. We're seeing a lot of moving parts, whether it be offensive line, whether it be receiver, defensive line, DBs now a little bit with Terry Roberts getting into the mix. So get those guys a lot more reps and potentially be the next man in as we continue through the season.
And Coach Ferentz talked about kind of reevaluating things, taking a look at what they're doing offensively and defensively. But can you really change things a whole lot at this stage of the season?
And no, and I don't think you want to. I think there's a way that Iowa plays football, and it's more about mentality. It's about going hard until the final whistle, the full 60 minutes, and kind of getting back to exactly what it is they do. Now, of course, you can add different things and add wrinkles, as you mentioned, to your offense, add a new facet. You've got 2 weeks now to really break something in if that's what you want to do. But really, it's about doing what you do, get fundamentally sound, and then go from there.
So is it more a focus on Iowa this week and then start in on Wisconsin a normal week game prep next week, or do you take a couple extra days and get a little work in on the opponent?
Usually it's just Iowa. It's Iowa on Iowa. It's kind of like your mid-week of camp or mid-season camp where you're an opportunity, again, to get the young guys going, work on just seeing the ball in, making sure that our hands are in the right spot on drop sets for the offensive line, little things like that. And then next week you really hone down on Wisconsin. Maybe you watch the game on Saturday where they play Purdue and pick up a few things here or there before normally going in, but it's all about Iowa getting better.
You've obviously played the position. What makes David Bell David Bell?
A lot of things. I mean, he's got the speed, he's got good hands, and he's not afraid to go up and go get it either. And what's scary is that Milton Wright on the other side is just as talented. Right. Both those guys made great plays, but 240 yards, I mean, that's not something that you typically see against an Iowa defense. But David Bell's kind of been their bell cow the last few times playing us. And, again, he's fast, he's tall, he's physical. And he just knows where to be. That's kind of the nuance of playing receiver, is knowing the zone in the defense or watching your DB enough to know, okay, I know he's going to use his hand this way, so I need to combat it this way. And that's really the guys that can go to that next tier.
Really seems to have good, quick feet, too. He gets in and out of breaks really well.
And that helps. I mean, if you can make every route look the same, and that's part of the challenge. If I can make a hitch look like a go, look like a comeback, you have no idea what I'm running until I decide when I change it.
Well, it was a how good a performance. Kinnick Stadium record for yards, 240 yards by David Bell, 100 yards after the catch. Hadn't seen that number before, and that record stood since 1989 by Dan Bitson. of Tulsa. Iowa won that game, but Dan Bitson in his career ended up with 3,300 receiving yards.
Oh, my goodness.
I think 73 receptions. That's a bunch. We'll take a look at the top 5 plays of the game as we look back at Iowa's loss to Purdue, and certainly later on ahead to the Wisconsin Badgers. Stay with us on Black and Gold Breakdown. Black and Gold Breakdown on MC22 is brought to you by McGrath Family of Dealerships, 5 Seasons Tire, Tom Riley Law Firm, Collins Community Credit Union, Heartland Hearing Center, and by Extreme, powered by Mediacom.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible. Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power, and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Thank you for virtual family dinners and long-distance birthday wishes. Thank you for sweet streaming melodies and spontaneous dance parties. Thank you for keeping classrooms together and learning alive. Thank you to our incredible network of employees who make all these beautiful connections possible.
Well, certainly things got off to a hot start for the Iowa offense, and first play of the game, Petrus was able to find Keegan Johnson, and at that point in time, Matt, you felt pretty good about the tempo and the things that Iowa might be able to do, because you worried about it at the beginning. Okay, slow start, fast start. Off of this play, you were pretty hopeful.
Well, anytime you get a quick slant and it goes for 38, it's a good thing. So they're playing like a bail technique, so on the snaps, their corner isn't even a factor. Keegan Johnson can just run his route free. Works across the middle. Charlie Jones makes a block. Almost takes down Keegan, but he's
really
got
good
some strong
blocking
lower
downfield.
bodies. And Nico, I'm pretty sure, puts somebody on their butt right about now.
Yep.
Comes in, lays the wood, and true freshman going for 38. It's what Keegan Johnson does.
And he showed us against Penn State that he could break tackles as well. How about this cutback move? A nice hole off the right side for Goodson and get him into open space. And I think it's a key for the Iowa offense going forward here. Nice read and bursts through the middle and then gets to the outside, trying to find him different ways to get the ball in space.
For sure, and just like last play, you got 2 receivers going down, trying to block and make sure that he's got more of an opportunity. On this one, we get Tyrone Tracy moving, trying to get a little misdirection for the defense. Ivory Kelly-Martin does a great job just getting north and south. Don't dance too much. Laporta comes in, absolutely demolishes the DN, and lets Ivory Kelly-Martin find the end zone.
Yeah, and great to see him get into the end zone for the first time since 2018, that also against Purdue. And the defense goes to work. Hey, you might want to chip number 44, but nobody touched him. And Seth Benson, who was Iowa's tackle leader for the ball game, the sack of Aiden O'Connell, make that Plummer. That was actually Plummer back there as they went back and forth with those two. But a great play, but not enough defensive plays like that.
You mentioned Ivory Kelly-Martin. We needed a spark here. Not used to seeing him return kicks, but like we talked about earlier, you go hard until the final whistle. Ivory trying to show some speed. Marquez down there trying to get a kick-out block. Gets us inside the red zone. An opportunity here to potentially fight our way back into it.
Yeah, and this is the point we talked about in the opening segment, Matt, where, okay, hey, there's 12 plus left, a big play, the crowd's back into it. If you can punch in a score early, it didn't take too long, and then all of a sudden now it's a football game. You're only down 10, and you're going to get the ball back at least 2 more times, but you just never felt like, boy, could Iowa get a couple stops in a row with how explosive the Purdue offense was.
And like we talked about, there were a few uncharacteristic things. You know, it's not often that we see missed field goal. What's interesting is, so I watched the game on TV, and they put up a graphic of Caleb Shudak that said 11 of 12 with 91+ percentage makes, right? And then he misses it. And then they go down, and their kicker had the same stats. They put the same graphic up there, and he missed his. So that's on the announcers, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and there was you know how Kinnick wind is.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
it seemed like it was coming out of the north, but then all of a sudden it shifted where the south end zone where Shudak was kicking, it was kind of left to right and got a huge gust. And I think he just put a little bit too much into it and pulled it a little bit. And then at the other end, same thing. It was a right to left wind heading to the north end zone. And the Purdue kicker, I think, just hung it out there too much, hoping that the wind would blow it back in. You see that in the NFL quite a bit. You have to play that wind, and it didn't work for those two.
Something about teams with black and gold colors. You know, Heinz Field is notorious for the wind out there. So maybe it's something with the colors. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but Shudak, he's been money all season long, and certainly know that he will have big kicks coming down the stretch of this season. We'll talk Players of the Week when we come back on Black and Gold Breakdown.
While a lot is changing in our world, at Mediacom, our focus remains the same, making sure you have the fastest, most reliable connection possible. During this critical time, we know your needs are changing. You may be working or learning from home, relying on telemedicine, or finding new ways to keep everyone entertained. If you need more speed, call or go online, and Mediacom will double your speed immediately for as low as $10 more a month for 1 year. Right now, millions of people and billions of devices are connected to the internet. Homes, businesses, hospitals, schools. The security and reliability of these connections are more important than ever. That's why at Mediacom, we've built a network to protect them. A network that sees threats, fixes problems before they occur, and keeps you going with 99.99% network reliability. Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Players of the game for the Hawks against the Boilermakers. Let's talk a little bit more about Ivory Kelly-Martin. Had 90 all-purpose yards, and this is more about perseverance than numbers, because he has really been injured his entire career, had a foot problem, ACL tear, at least one, and he's a little banged up now, but getting through it. Had a little fumble issue early on in the season, but coaching staff stuck with him, and his time has increased, and then, as we saw, made a big play on special teams.
Well, and Coach Brian Ferentz mentioned in one of his interviews that Ivory is the quintessential teammate. He goes in there, he'll do the dirty work, pick up blitzes, but you need him to rattle off a 10-yard run. He did that earlier in the game. So really, he kind of, like you said, encompasses what a Hawkeye teammate truly is.
Yeah, just keeps coming back and back, persevering through injuries, not an easy thing. He had 20 receiving yards, 56 kickoff, 37 punt returns, so gave the Hawks an opportunity with field position there late in the contest, and he's going to be a big part of the Iowa offense coming down the stretch as well. Defensively, Seth Benson, what can you say? We've talked about Jack Campbell, and Seth Benson, 12 tackles, one away from his career high. And you talked about how well the linebackers are tackling, and he's certainly one of them.
Well, and they're keeping their eyes up. We see a lot of targeting calls, and because guys are dipping their heads and everything like that. Like that top play, Seth Benson's eyes were up. He sees what he's hitting, and that's why he's as consistent as he is. I think that flow might help, but either way, he's been phenomenal so far this year.
And the Iowa defense, and you include the linebackers in there, they run well. I think Benson runs better than a lot of middle linebackers out there, or weak side linebackers, and The fact that they tackle so well in space is a big reason why this defense has been good so far this year.
And to your point, linebackers are kind of known for their tackling, but I think Jack Kerner in space has been really good this season. I mean, almost any time, a lot of times it's been a running quarterback that'll sometimes leak out, and Kerner's there waiting for him. And it's not too often somebody makes him miss, and so that's been a real positive in terms of coming up and making a play.
No doubt about that, and hopefully the Iowa defense will regroup after a tough performance against Purdue, and certainly know that it is one of the top defenses in the country and will have its work cut out for it against Wisconsin. Time for X's and O's, and Matt talks about a play that maybe got away from the Hawkeyes against the Boilermakers.
On this week's episode of X's and O's, we're going to stay on the offensive side. Again, no offense to Gavin. We're going to talk about something that happened in the second quarter. It was 3rd and 4, where we had an opportunity to score a touchdown. And the more reps we get, the more defenses we see, the better prepared we will be moving forward. So let's talk about the play. It was almost bad, but Purdue ended up dropping the play, but we had an opportunity, and that's what we'll talk about. So we come out, basically a trip set. We've got a tight end on this side. They only had 2 down linemen. These 2 guys were standing up. They were trying to play games with us, or who was blitzing, who wasn't. So in this particular instance, we actually kept our tight end in, and we kept our running back in to help in case they brought anybody. Now they only brought 4, so Spencer had an opportunity to wait and make his read. They were doing what's called like a fence defense. So the goal line is about right here. And all they're trying to do is make sure that we don't go past them. We talked about Penn State before, how they were playing man-to-man, but they weren't at level, so they ran into each other. We expected Purdue to do the same thing, but they didn't. They played what's called like a fence zone. So our inside receiver has a corner. If this is the pylon, he actually has a corner route that goes right through here. Now, we expected them to play man-to-man, so we have what we call a whip route by Charlie Jones, or the Z in this particular situation, where he's running it out and then he's going to come back underneath depending upon if these guys run into each other. It's kind of like what we ran against Penn State, but flipped. So now the X is actually running a one-step slant underneath, barring these 2 run into each other. This guy ended up floating all the way out and ended up breaking up the pass. But that's not where I think we should focus. These guys all don't really have a responsibility because they're just worrying about the goal line. Again, we don't have any routes on this side. This guy is the one that we need to read here. So Nico comes off the ball. He's already got leverage. There's no way he can get to this position here. So Nico pushes forward and then just busts tail to the corner. Again, he doesn't have to make a move. He doesn't have to do anything special because he's already beaten him by leverage. There's no way, unless he comes all the way over, is he going to be able to make this play. So Nico runs vertical, breaks out of his route, and Spencer might be able to just lay it up to this pylon for an opportunity to win it, for the opportunity for Nico to win and score a touchdown. Again, the more reps we get, you're going to face different things. That's kind of what's football. Sometimes you get zone, sometimes you get man-to-man. So like I said, on this side, he played zone. He just said, I'm taking whoever comes out. He's saying, I'm taking whoever comes in. They did a combo. But this is really where the matchup is, and the more reps we get, the more opportunities we see defenses, we're going to make a lot of good plays going forward. And that's this week's session of X's and O's.
Excellent job, Matt, and hopefully you look at plays down the road and Iowa will be able to execute and turn points into some of those drives. Before we take a break, the AP midseason All-American teams came out today. Congratulations to Matt Hankins and Tyler Linderbaum as their AP midseason All-Americans. Hankins has started 34 straight games. We'll be back and take a look at the Big Ten standings and also kind of dissect some of the games this weekend. And of course, as Matt said, the West is still up for grabs. We'll be back. Black and Gold Breakdown on MC22 is brought to you by McGrath Family of Dealerships, 5 Seasons Tire, Tom Riley Law Firm, Collins Community Credit Union, Heartland Hearing Center, and by Extreme, powered by Mediacom.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible. Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power, and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Thank you for virtual family dinners and long-distance birthday wishes. Thank you for sweet streaming melodies and spontaneous dance parties. Thank you for keeping classrooms together and learning alive. Thank you to our incredible network of employees who make all these beautiful connections possible.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power, and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Of course, the Hawks off this weekend, and then we'll head to Madison a week from Saturday. That is an 11 o'clock tip, and as we talked about earlier, Matt, it is an interesting game this weekend. Is Wisconsin hosting Purdue after Wisconsin defeats Army in a non-conference game last week? Let's take a look at the AP Top 25. Of course, Hawkeyes, as expected, dropped. Didn't know if they'd drop out of the top 10, but as of now, sitting there at number 11. You got Georgia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Alabama, the top one-loss team in there. And then Ohio State and Michigan, they'll play. Penn State has to play the other two as well. And then Michigan State at 7-0 at number 9. So looks good right now for the Big Ten, but especially Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, all going to have to tangle here pretty soon.
I say the East is going to start beating itself up here over the next few weeks, and I think that makes for a lot of exciting football.
And then after Iowa, we've got Ole Miss and Notre Dame that's sitting there, and Purdue gets into the top 25, and rightfully so, at 4-2. Boilermakers only 2 losses to Notre Dame and also Minnesota. Let's take a look at the standings for the East and the West of the Big Ten. And of course, up for grabs, just like the East is. You get Michigan State at 4-0, 7-0. Maybe one of the top surprises, not only in the Big Ten, but maybe the country. Michigan at 3-0 and 6-0. Ohio State 3-0, 5-1. Penn State 2-1, 5-1. But of course, everybody's going to play. And then you've got Maryland at 4-2 overall. Indiana really struggling this year. And Rutgers as well got beat by Northwestern last weekend. So that's for sure a 4-horse race, and we'll start dropping once we start playing each other. But boy, whoever comes out of here is going to have a real chance not only to win the national championship, but certainly be in the Final Four.
Absolutely. Michigan State's, I think their deep pass game is kind of what's been the most surprising. One of their guys, I forget who they were playing, but I think he had 4 catches of 60-plus yards and a couple touchdowns. So their down the field has improved immensely, and Mel Tucker's just doing a great job out there.
Yeah, he's done a terrific job resurrecting Michigan State as we take a look at the West. And as we mentioned, still anybody's ball game here. And if you're Iowa at 3-1, 6-1, you still have to feel pretty good because Minnesota, you figure they're not going to run the table. I'd be shocked if Purdue did. And then the rest of the teams, Northwestern, Wisconsin have 2 losses, and then Illinois and Nebraska. Surprised at Nebraska last week getting beat. I thought they'd put up a little better fight, especially what we saw the week before against Michigan, and now they're really just trying to string a few wins together.
And the fact that Wisconsin is down there at number 5 is also surprising. But Nebraska seems to play a lot of close games under Coach Scott Frost. They just can't quite get over the hump to be on the other side of those one-possession games.
And then, Matt, as you well know, you look at Wisconsin, Northwestern, boy, don't count them out when Iowa has to play them, because it seems like both of those teams, one, tend to play well against Iowa, and then number 2, get better as the season goes on, even though Northwestern has really struggled.
It's so weird how teams on the West continue to go up and down. Wisconsin, you typically know what you're going to see from them. It's going to be a good run game. It's probably going to be a pretty good defense. As you mentioned, they played Army last week. They were up 13-0 going into half, and Army kind of stormed their way back, and that only ended up being a 6-point game. So I'm not saying that this isn't the Wisconsin of old, but I don't see us necessarily having to go super. I don't know if Madison's going to be as tough of a place to play as it usually is.
Right. If you're going to get Wisconsin in Madison, this would certainly be a year that you can do it. There's been other years when they're in the top 10 or top 15 when, boy, it would be a miracle to win up there like Iowa did in 2015. That was somewhat of a miracle. But that doesn't have the feel this year, and that's where I think everything's still so wide open, because there's not a great team right now in the entire division.
And like you talked about Purdue, they'd really have to run the table, but we still have an opportunity to knock Minnesota down. They're coming off, obviously, a good win against Nebraska. Again, they're kind of up and down. They only throw the ball, maybe 20 times a game, if that, and their top 2 running backs are down, but they still continue to try and churn out the yards on the ground. So that's something that we got to be conservative and be aware of as we continue to move through the season.
Yeah, nothing easy, but everything's gettable.
Absolutely.
I think that's the point you have to look at the last 5 games. Nothing insurmountable, but Iowa will have to play well to win every week. Well, what's up in the Big Ten this weekend? A lot of teams, like the Hawkeyes, taking the weekend off. As you got Illinois at Penn State, that shouldn't be a problem for the Nittany Lions. Northwestern at Michigan. And then the big one that we'll certainly have our eyes on, Wisconsin at Purdue. And then Maryland at Minnesota. Is Maryland going to struggle the rest of the year? It seems like years in the past they've been able to have a good non-conference portion of the schedule, get off to a decent start in the Big Ten, and then really run into some roadblocks. We'll see about the Terrapins, and then Ohio State kind of running all cylinders here shouldn't really have a problem in Bloomington.
Well, and like you mentioned, Indiana with Penix going down, that really kind of changes what they can do. But I'm going to go back to that Maryland-Minnesota game. You don't know what Tagovailoa you're going to get either as they move forward. So I'll be interested to see how Minnesota combats that.
All right, Matt, great job. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
We'll be back. More Black and Gold breakdown as we will talk Iowa and Wisconsin next week.